Hey, what's going on? Just getting started here. Kind of a late start to the morning. For me personally, a little strange, but alas, here we are. Okie dokie. So, um, you know, I started doing this thing that has been suggested for a very long time. I started to actually write some Seinfeld emails, and that's, my innovation. Uh, it started yesterday, but it just helps me get so much more clear on what exactly it is that I'm going to be talking about, going to be doing while I'm live doing these podcasts. And, it can be repurposed so many other ways. I could use it as a Facebook blog, I could use it so many different ways. So just wanted to throw that out there. In my behind the scenes little hack for today, dude, it's going to pay off so big. I know it. I can feel it. And that's really what today's podcast is all about, is playing the game at the level you're at. Because once you come to grips with that, you can really start to make the progress. You can truly level up instead of doing this false leveling up thing. So that's what today's podcast is all about. I hope you guys enjoy. I'm about to officially start in just a second here. So 3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? Marty here, and on today's episode of Marketing Siege Radio, I'm going to propose a question. And I'm not going to lie, it's probably going to feel a little bit challenging to you. It definitely did to me. And I want to challenge you with this question. Are you really growing, or are you fooling yourself? Are you really just shooting from the hip? Like, for a very long time, I couldn't exactly understand why I was experiencing burnout at such a strong level. I was hustling, I was grinding, and I was doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do to be successful. I was embracing the grind. I was going after there, getting after it, learning as much as I could, implementing as much as I could, just really reaching out there and putting myself on the line. But I was missing something very crucial to success. I've always been addicted to leveling up. And that feeling of growth makes me feel more alive than anything else on this planet. I'll do almost anything to get that feeling, because I've been to the other side of it. Like Tony Robbins said, if you're not growing, you'll feel like you're dying. And that is so true. So I was trying to grow. I was doing all this stuff, but I was experiencing burnout. I was literally and physically, mentally, spiritually running myself into the ground. And I couldn't figure out why. But I was missing this one thing. And this one thing was causing me to grind my gears and burn out faster than anything else. Like, it's so fast. Faster than a flash on Red Bull. It's a little Big Bang Theory reference if you've ever seen that show. But obviously I wanted to put an end to burnout, but burning out was also causing me to feel like the biggest failure on the planet. And it made me feel like I wasn't fit to lead anybody. And it kind of reminded me of back, I make a lot of game references, and that's what this is all about. Gamifying your life, gamifying your business, creating your win, creating the game that you want to play, a game that you can win. So I remember whenever I made the switch from playing on Xbox to playing on PC, I switched from playing on a controller to playing on mouse and keyboard. And my game that I was playing at the time, that I was still playing this day, still very much in love with it, is Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. And for a long time, I played on the controller, and intellectually, I knew how that game was supposed to be played. I knew the ins and outs. I studied Pro League. I had a lot of spare time on my hands whenever I was injured, and I knew how to play the game. I knew intellectually what was going on. So the first thing I did whenever I hopped on PC was I played like a round and a half of Terrorist Hunt, which is basically you against the computer artificial intelligence. And I put it on an easy difficulty to kind of get the hang of it. Then I immediately started playing competitive multiplayer again. And boy, I was getting shellacked. So I was like, okay, went too fast. Let me back up for a second. So then I put it back on Terrorist Hunt, but instead of playing on easy, I started playing on, like, I think, I'm not looking at it right now. I think there's hard, and then there's what they call realistic, which is, realistic, you can't make a mistake, more or less, like none. So I put it on realistic because obviously I know how to play this game intellectually. I know how this is supposed to go down, but the actual application of it had not caught up. The implementation had not caught up to the knowledge yet. And, in my mind, like, I'm not one of those kind of people, like, obviously the better thing to do is to start small and work yourself up little by little. But I'm also one of those guys that, let's skip all that, put me in the fire. I know that's going to do me the most good, which is halfway true. So I kept doing this. I kept just like getting shellacked. I wasn't winning. I was setting myself up to lose. I did get better, but my technique started to get more and more sloppy the more I did. It's almost like the equivalent in jiu-jitsu. If all you do is roll, especially against people that are way better than you, you'll get better to a certain degree, but your technique will never get refined. It'll never get sharpened enough to where you're actually doing the correct things. You'll create all these bad habits, and you'll start doing things like muscling your way through and forcing techniques, which is always a recipe for disaster. And that was exactly what was going on. And so after loss, after loss, after loss, after loss, it's like, instead of all I do is win, is all I do is lose. And that's not the way you want to play any game. You want to play at the level where you can win most of the time, but it's challenging, it's pushing your limits. And I was playing way above my skill level at the time. And because I had not come to grips with actually where I was, what level am I on, I was getting burnt out of playing that game. And then that's whenever it hit me. I've been doing the same thing in the game of life, the game of business. I'd been, skipping these elementary steps because I'm like, I know intellectually what that means and how that means, but I had not gone through and put in the reps. I had not Mr. Miyagi'd it, waxed on, waxed off, and painted the fence enough times to get it. And it's because I didn't understand. Really, I thought I did, but I did not understand. And the biggest thing that held me back was I was refusing to be a beginner. And that's always a recipe for disaster. I talk a lot about having a white belt mentality, always being a student, always being willing to learn. And, people preach all the time, implement, and imperfect action is definitely the name of the game. When it comes to the game of life, the game of business, the game of marketing, the game of fitness, it's like you just got to play the game. But there's a caveat to that, and that caveat is you must also come to grips with the level you're at. Where are you in the process? Because skipping the foundational steps is going to get you in a place where you become sloppy and you're wasting energy. Like I actually haven't rolled in jiu-jitsu in several months now at this point, but the last time that I did, and for a long time, I used jiu-jitsu as like my workout too. I was not I was not working out because it made me huff and puff enough to consider that to be a workout. But the last time I did it, I wasn't getting winded. I had sharpened those skills up enough to where I was using technique properly and it seemed easy. Now, was I winning every rolling exchange? No, but I also was not blowing unnecessary energy because I had these foundational principles that were not only in my noggin from an intellectual level, they are also ingrained through repetition in my being, in my soul. It's like I'll never forget the way it feels to use your hips in this way, and the way it feels to dig for that underhook, and the way it feels to, slide up to your knees and run somebody over in half guard. It's just I've done it so many times. And that's why I was burned out all of last year. I was trying to do everything, was my first mistake, number one. But number two, I was also playing way above my current skill level at the time. So an update on that right now is I'm working on my web class. And after all this stuff has kind of been here and there and everywhere, I've got my ad working. Of all the things, like traffic of all things in the game of marketing, it scares me the most. And I've been at that point where I've had to do everything, but now it's starting to shape up to where I can, in the near future, pass off some of these things that I'm not as good at off and only focus on my strengths, which is another way that you win the game. That's another topic for another day. But got the ad working and the landing page wasn't converting. Nobody's signing up for the free web class, which that sucks because the web class is totally awesome. But there was an incongruency between the ad and the landing page itself. And it was like, oh, I didn't realize that was such a big thing. So by focusing on that one thing and coming to grips with hey, that slipped by. I intellectually knew that, but it slipped by in practice. That was a direct byproduct of playing the game above my current skill level. And it has taken me a long time to realize and understand this. So I hope this is resonating with you. And remember, guys, you're one upgrade away. Boom. All right. So that being said, if you are ready to put an end to burnout and boredom, I hate that cycle. I hate it so much because you'll flip flop. You'll go in these little areas where you're going 1,000 miles an hour, balls to the wall. You'll be feeling good. You'll get this false sense of growth. And then all of a sudden you crash because you burned out. And then me personally, after I experienced this burnout phase, I go into a phase where I'm too afraid to do that again. I'm like, that was a lot of wasted energy and I got nothing done. So I start to do nothing. And I start to crave too much certainty, too much structure in my life. I start to shell up and not defend myself. In MMA, it's like just covering up is not intelligently defending yourself. If somebody's punching at you, you have to fire back even if you miss, just to gain respect. So I'll get caught in these boredom loops to where I might be learning a lot of stuff, but not actually doing anything anymore. So if you're ready to break that cycle, get out of that, you must come. That might be a stretch. You really need to come. You should want to come to my web class that's going on. That's called something. I've changed the headline a couple of times to change the hook. Like I said, I've been working on the landing page, but it's called How to Level Up Your Productivity 100 Times Without Burnout, Boredom, or Sacrificing Yourself, which is something that I know all entrepreneurs want to do. All business owners want to do that. They want to get stuff done, but they want to stay away from burning out. They want to stay away from boredom, and they want to stay away from sacrificing the things that matter the most to them: your health, your wealth, your relationships. If this is you, this web class is for you. And I highly encourage you go to gearedupinsider.com/win. So you can start winning the game of life as a business owner. So remember, you are one upgrade away.